I thought I'd go ahead and demonstrate how to do the calculation of the average number of days to sell inventory and in the inventory turnover ratio. Those are really common ratios used to measure managers. So if you've never seen it before, it's probably because you're not a manager. If you're a manager and you've never seen it before, that's hard to believe. It must mean you don't have any inventory. This is a common one, and there are other metrics that calculate similar items like accounts receivable and other turnover ratios that are commonly used to grade managers on how well they're doing. Back in the day when I was a product manager with an auto insurance company back in the 80s, every month they walked down with an income statement for my branch of the company, and I had 48 hours to write a report explaining why everything looked like it did. And one of the admonitions from the president of the company was, "Don't blame the accounting." I said, I learned enough accounting. I wasn't going to blame the accounting. I was going to use the accounting. So if you knew how the accounting worked, he was the one at the disadvantage because I knew more accounting than he did. And again, I said this a dozen times. I'll say it a dozen more. I'm not an accountant. I struggled with accounting when I was in school, but I'll tell you, when they started grading me once a month, I learned some accounting. You don't need to know much. If you know a little bit, you'll know more than most everybody else. All right, so let's talk about how we get this average days of inventory. We need a couple of numbers, and I'm in the spreadsheet for comparing McDonald's and Johnson Johnson. I'm just going to make a hole in the spreadsheet and gather the information I need. To calculate the inventory turnover, I need the cost of goods sold, and I've got that up here in my spreadsheet. So I'm just going to copy this junk. I need the cost of goods sold, and I need the inventory. The inventory is down here in a balance sheet. There's a lot more information in here than you've been exposed to, but this is the kind of stuff that I use in your BADM 321 class. So, get used to it, I guess. You'll see it again. So the inventory turnover is cost of goods sold over inventory. Not very complicated ratio. All right, now the numbers we're seeing here for McDonald's are going to be bizarrely large. And the reason for that is that the McDonald's Corporation itself doesn't hold any inventory to speak of. All those McDonald's, all those franchisees, the inventory in those McDonald's stores is their inventory, not the McDonald's Corporation. McDonald's Corporation itself has almost no inventory, and it owns the real estate that those stores operate out of, and it charges them a fee for doing it under their license. That's good business if you can get it, I guess. If we look over here at Johnson Johnson, theirs is a little bit different. They have a relatively large amount of inventory for the years that we're showing here. I doubt it will have changed much. If we look at this, it says that 2.7, it means that the cost of goods sold is 2.7 times the size of their inventory. And that means roughly 2.7 times a year they turn over or sell off all their inventory. So some people like to use days of inventory, which I think is, that's another way of looking at it. I'm going to use the book formula for days of inventory, which I think is a hard way to understand it. But you know what? It's accounting, and accounting's supposed to be hard anyway. That's a joke. Days of inventory here is simply 365 divided by the inventory turnover ratio. Now, what that does is simply convert this, how many times a year they sell their inventory, into how many days it takes. Okay, so if you're selling off all your inventory 244 times a year, then that's about 1.5 days to turn it over. If we go over here to Johnson and Johnson, $365 divided by the inventory turnover, you can see that it takes about 137 days. That's roughly what, almost 5 months. So if it took you 4.5 months to turn, if your inventory lasted on average every 4.5 months, if you sold every bit of it off and then replenished it and sold every bit of it off and then replenished it and then sold 70% of it off, you could turn it over about 2.7 times per year. So these two ratios are related. This is how many days it takes to empty the inventory. This is how many times you can empty the inventory per year. All right, and we can see that Johnson & Johnson is slow. They hold a lot of inventory. McDonald's is fast. They don't hold much inventory. Neither one's better or worse. They're just different.